I came home with the smell of cold air still on my coat. The house looked warm from outside, lights on the tree, gold and soft. But inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. Michael stood near the fireplace, arms folded, face stiff. "Michael," I greeted him gently, "I brought the groceries you asked for." He didn't move. "Mom, I need to tell you something." The tone stopped me mid-step. "What is it?" His jaw tightened. "I'm tired of seeing you every day." The words landed like a slap in daylight. I didn't flinch. I just looked at him, my own son, searching for any trace of hesitation. There wasn't any. "You're tired of seeing me?" He nodded once. "Elaine and I talked. We need space. It's nothing personal." "Nothing personal," I repeated. "In the house I bought?" He shifted, eyes darting toward the staircase. Elaine was upstairs. Her perfume lingered faintly in the air. She wasn't coming down. She didn't need to. Her decision was already walking and talking through him. I set the grocery bag on the counter, keeping my hands steady. "You feel crowded by the person who gave you this roof." "Mom, don't turn this into guilt. We're adults now. We just want to live our life." "You already do." "It doesn't feel like it," he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. I studied him for a moment, his nervous breathing, the way his shoulders slumped under the weight of borrowed courage. My son, who once hid behind me during storms, now hid behind his wife's words. "So this is what space means," I said softly, not as a question. "Removing the one person who made this house possible." His lips pressed into a thin line. "It's better for everyone." "Better for Elaine?" "For both of us." I stepped closer, enough for him to see I wasn't angry, just awake. "You're free to need what you need, Michael, but understand this. Every piece of this place, every wall, every brick, came from my work. You and your wife have lived here rent-free for 3 years. He didn't answer. His silence was confession enough. The lights on the Christmas tree blinked between us, red and green, flickers cutting through the stillness. Outside, snow started to fall again. I picked up one of the gift bags. Inside was a scarf I'd chosen for Elaine. I placed it on the table. "You can give this to her yourself." "Mom," I raised a hand. "Don't. You've made yourself clear." He took a small step forward. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "You just did." The air between us tightened. I heard the faint creak of a floorboard upstairs. Elaine listening. Always listening. I opened the front closet and reached for my coat. My movements were calm, deliberate, not a single wasted motion. "Where are you going?" he asked quickly. "For a walk. It's freezing. It matches the atmosphere." He blinked, unsure whether I was joking. I wasn't. I wrapped the scarf around my neck, buttoned the coat, and looked at him once more. "You know, when you were 10, you begged me not to sell this house after your father died. You said it was home." He looked down. "Things change." "Yes," I replied. "They do." I took my car keys from the bowl by the door. "You want space, Michael? You'll have plenty." He reached out, hesitating. "Mom, maybe we can talk later." "No." My voice was calm but final. "You wanted peace. So do I." For a second he just stood there, speechless. Maybe he thought I'd argue, cry, demand an explanation. But I wasn't the kind of woman who begged to stay where she wasn't respected. I opened the front door. The winter wind rushed in, sharp and honest. "Lock up after me," I told him. "You're still under my roof. For now." His face tightened, as if he realized too late that he had pushed the wrong person. I stepped outside. Snow crunched under my boots. Behind me, the door closed softly, the latch clicking like the end of a sentence. The street was empty, quiet except for the faint hum of Christmas lights from the neighbors' porches. I walked to my car without looking back. Inside, I sat for a moment, gloved hands resting on the steering wheel. No tears, no trembling. Just the sound of my own steady breathing. He thought he had taken control tonight. He hadn't. The snow kept falling. The lights from the house glowed faintly in the mirror, then disappeared as I turned the key and drove away. By the time I reached the corner, I already knew what I would do next. I entered my room and closed the door quietly. The warmth from downstairs didn't reach here. The silence was clear, like a page waiting to be written on. I took off my gloves and placed them on the dresser. My reflection in the mirror looked steady, not sad. I watched the woman who had just been told she was no longer wanted in her own house, and I saw no weakness there. The faint sound of Michael's voice came from below, low and unsure. Elaine's softer tone followed, sharp and quick, like she was confirming that he'd done what she told him to do. I didn't move for a moment. Then I crossed the room, opened the drawer, and pulled out a folder. Inside were the house papers, the full deed with my name printed clearly. Nora Bennett. The words were simple. They meant power. I sat on the bed, flipped through the pages, and read the date I made the last payment. 10 years ago. Every bill cleared, every document sealed, every corner of this house built with my hands and my choices. There was nothing left to argue about. I reached for the old leather notebook I kept on my nightstand. It was full of numbers, reminders, and notes about repairs. I turned to a blank page and pressed the pen down firmly. One line. Sell the house. Quietly. I looked at those words until they felt real. Michael said he needed space. Elaine said she needed peace. Fine. They would both have it, more than they could imagine. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Michael paused outside the door. "Mom, are you okay?" "Completely," I answered. He waited for a few seconds, then walked away. I heard him whisper something downstairs. Elaine laughed faintly. I opened the closet and pulled out a small box of personal documents, bank statements, insurance forms, receipts for every major purchase in this house. I laid them on the desk in order. Everything in my name. I didn't need to search. I already knew. My phone buzzed on the desk. A message from Elaine. "Dinner's ready. We'll eat without you if you're busy." I looked at it, then placed the phone face down. The message wasn't about food. It was about control. She was testing how far I would bend before I broke. I wouldn't bend again. I opened the silver box in my drawer, the one I hadn't touched in years. Inside were small things that once meant family. My husband's watch, an old photograph of Michael as a child, and a folded note that read, "Everything you build, protect it." I closed the box carefully. It wasn't time to feel. It was time to move. From the window, I could see the reflection of the Christmas lights flickering on the snow. The same lights Michael hung 2 nights ago while Elaine stood below, giving instructions like she owned the place. I picked up my notebook again and drew a line under my last note. Call Margaret. She would understand. She always did. The phone rang twice before she answered. "Nora, are you all right? You sound calm, and that's never good." "I'm fine," I told her. "I just need a favor." "What kind?" "Discretion. Do you still know that real estate agent who helped your sister last year?" There was a pause. Then, "Jonathan Pierce?" "That's the one." Margaret's tone sharpened. "What's going on?" "I'm selling the house." "In December?" In silence, I replied, "Can you ask him to call me tonight?" "Nora." "I'm sure, Margaret. Just tell him." She exhaled slowly. "All right. But whatever you're planning, be careful." "Always." I hung up and set the phone aside. My hands rested flat on the table for a long moment. The surface felt cool, solid, like certainty. Downstairs, I could hear faint laughter. Elaine's voice, light and controlled. She was telling some story, probably about me. I picked up the deed again and looked at my name one last time. It wasn't just ownership, it was proof. Michael thought I'd stay quiet because I loved him too much to fight back. He forgot that I taught him everything he knows about strength. I placed the documents back into the folder, sealed it, and slid it into my handbag. My plan was set. No arguments, no announcements, just action. I turned off the light and stood in the dark for a few seconds. The quiet no longer felt heavy. It felt like power. "They wanted space," I murmured under my breath. "Now they'll get it." And for the first time that night, I almost smiled. The next morning felt colder, though the heat was on. The smell of cinnamon lingered from the night before. I poured coffee into my old ceramic mug and stared at the empty chair across the table. The phone rang. Margaret's name lit up the screen. "Morning," she said. "I baked gingerbread. You're coming, right?" "Maybe," I replied. "You sound off." "My son told me he's tired of seeing me. On Christmas." A pause. "He said that?" "Word for word." Margaret's tone dropped. "In your own house?" "Yes." "That man owes his life to your patience." "Patience isn't a life skill," I said flatly. "It's a delay tactic." She exhaled softly. "Come by anyway. I'll make coffee strong enough to melt walls." "I'm not running, Margaret. I'm thinking." "About what?" "How to give them the space they want, and the silence they won't handle." Her voice steadied. "You're not planning something reckless, are you?" "Reckless is emotion. This is arithmetic." "Nora," she murmured, "you scare me when you talk like that." "Then you finally understand me." There was a short silence before she said, "Fine, I'll stop by in 20, with the cookies." 20 minutes later, the bell rang. She stepped inside, scarf dusted in snow, holding a tin wrapped with red ribbon. The warmth from her coat met the chill of my kitchen. "Here, still warm." I opened the lid. The smell hit first. Ginger, clove, molasses. "Smells like calm," I muttered. Margaret leaned against the counter. "Calm isn't the word I'd use. You're plotting something." "Observation isn't plotting." She raised an eyebrow. "You've got that look again." "What look?" "The someone's going to regret underestimating me look." I didn't answer. I broke a cookie in half. "Remember when Michael was 12? He said cookies fixed everything." "Because you told him that." "I lied." She frowned. "You're serious about leaving, aren't you?" "I'm serious about balance. They took comfort for granted. I'll show them cost." Margaret sat down. "You have a plan." "Jonathan Pierce," I said, opening my notebook. "Real estate, confidential sales only." Her eyes widened. "That fast?" "Fast keeps people honest." "I know him," she said slowly. "He helped me sell my sister's condo. Quiet worker. I can call him." "Do that." Margaret pulled out her phone. I listened to the faint sound of her voice arranging a meeting. Her words were calm, efficient. When she hung up, she turned toward me. "He'll call you within the hour." "Good. Are you sure you want to do this behind Michael's back?" "Behind? He told me to leave. I'm simply respecting his wish." Margaret rubbed her temple. "You're taking his cruelty and turning it into math. That's dangerous." "No," I corrected. "It's precise." The phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. "Mrs. Bennett, Jonathan Pierce speaking. Margaret mentioned your situation. Thank you for calling. She said discretion is important." "It is." "And the house is under your name, correct?" "Yes, paid in full. No liens, no shared title." He hesitated. "Then this will be simple. I can prepare the documents today. Would you prefer an in-person meeting or virtual?" "In person, tomorrow morning, but not at this address." "Understood. Send the location by text." "I will." When the call ended, Margaret let out a slow whistle. "You weren't kidding. I don't kid about ownership." She folded her hands. "You're colder than usual." I learned from warmth. It never protected me. Margaret looked around the kitchen, the polished table, the empty plates, the perfect quiet. "So, this is it?" "This is the start," she sighed. "You'll hurt him, you know." "No," I said softly. "He hurt himself when he stopped seeing me as a person." "You'll leave him with nothing." "I'll leave him with truth." Her eyes softened. "You've changed." "No," I whispered. "I just stopped apologizing." The sound of keys came from the hallway. Michael's voice followed. "Mom? Margaret?" He walked in, still wearing his coat, eyes shifting between us. "I didn't know you had company." "Morning," I said evenly. He smiled awkwardly. "Smells good. Gingerbread?" "Yes," Margaret replied. "You want one?" "Sure." He bit into one, glancing between us. Elaine's decorating the tree. You should come help. I have plans. His smile faltered. Plans? Personal ones. He hesitated. You're still upset about what I said? I met his eyes. I'm not upset, Michael. I'm awake. Margaret looked down at her cup, hiding a small smirk. He tried to laugh it off. You know Elaine didn't mean— Stop explaining her, I interrupted. It doesn't change what you both believe. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I should go. Probably. He left quietly, the door shutting behind him. Margaret exhaled. He's clueless. He's comfortable, I replied. Comfort dulls conscience. Margaret rose from her chair, brushing crumbs from her sleeve. What happens next? I sign, I sell, and I disappear. She looked at me, eyes searching. You're not scared? Scared of what? Losing a house or proving I never needed it? She smiled faintly. You sound like your old self again. Then it's about time, I said. Margaret headed to the door. I'll call tonight. And, Nora? Yes? Don't lose that calm. It's your sharpest weapon. When she left, the house felt quiet again. I stood at the counter, the air filled with the scent of gingerbread and snow. I looked down at the table where Michael had left a crumb. I brushed it into my palm and dropped it into the trash. The sound was soft, final, perfect. The next morning started with the hum of the heater and a line of frost on the windows. I poured coffee, checked my notebook, and waited. At exactly 9, a silver sedan stopped in the driveway. Martin Cole never ran late. He stepped out, tall coat, briefcase in hand, expression sharp as always. When he entered, the air changed, steady, professional, cold like order itself. Morning, Nora. You're on time. I always am. He glanced around the dining room. I remember this table. You hosted Christmas here 3 years in a row. That was before gratitude became optional. He gave a short nod and opened his case. Let's talk property. We sat across from each other. He spread the documents with neat precision. Title, tax record, full deed, everything still under your name. I double-checked last night, I said, sliding the file closer. No transfers, no co-owners. He flipped through the pages. Clean. You could sell it today and no one can contest it. That's the plan. His eyes lifted. Margaret told me what happened. She tells you too much. She tells me just enough to prepare your defense. I'm not the one who needs defending. Martin studied me for a beat, the corner of his mouth tightening. You're serious about selling. I don't bluff with deeds. He leaned back. Then we move fast. Quiet sale. Cash buyer. No public listing. Jonathan Pierce is handling it, I confirmed. Good choice. He marked a note in the margin. He works clean. He paused, watching me. How are you holding up? Fine. Really? I've been insulted by my own blood in a house I built from scratch. That removes most illusions. He tapped his pen once, the sound sharp against the wood. You know, most people would cry. Most people don't have a plan. A faint smile crossed his face. I'll draft the confidentiality agreement today. No digital trail, just signatures. Perfect. He turned a page, reviewing dates. You'll also need to declare capital gains. I'll handle that. The less paperwork left open, the better. Handle it all. I trust you. Trust is expensive these days. I can afford it, he chuckled softly. Still the same Nora, always 3 steps ahead. I prefer clean exits to dramatic ones. He looked up. And your son? What about him? He'll ask questions once he finds out. Then he'll learn answers have deadlines too. Martin let that hang in the air. Does Elaine know anything? She suspects control slipping. That's enough to keep her busy. He closed the folder. You're aware that once you sell, they'll have no claim left, not even residency. That's the idea. He studied me quietly. This isn't revenge, is it? It's correction. He nodded once. Understood. The silence stretched for a few seconds, filled only by the hum of the heater. Then Martin reached for his coat pocket and pulled out a pen, sleek, black, heavy. "You'll need to sign here and here. Nothing final yet, just authorization to prepare documents." I read the pages carefully, then signed. The sound of the pen on paper was steady, clean. When I handed it back, he met my eyes. "You just turned a page most people never dare to open." I stopped being most people when they stopped being family. He gathered the papers, slid them into his case, and locked it. "You'll have a buyer within 48 hours. "I already have one in mind," I replied. "You're faster than I thought." Speed keeps guilt from catching up. He zipped the briefcase, then looked at me for a long second. "You know what I like about you, Nora? You don't scream. You just execute. Noise doesn't win wars, Martin. Paperwork does." He smiled faintly. "Then let's win one quietly." He reached the door but paused. "I'll send confirmation tonight. You sure you're okay being alone through this?" "I've been alone in this house for years. They just filled the space." He gave a small nod. "You always turn pain into precision. Don't lose that." "I won't." The door clicked shut behind him. I stayed at the table for a while, staring at the signature drying on the page. The ink shimmered under the light, my name holding everything they'd tried to take. The silence was comfortable now. No pity, no noise, just control. A car pulled into the driveway again, not Martin's. Michael stepped in through the front door without knocking. His eyes went straight to the papers on the table. "What's all this?" "Routine legal work," I answered. He frowned. "You're updating your will?" "Not exactly." He walked closer. "You didn't tell me Martin was coming." "I didn't think I needed your permission." His lips pressed into a line. "You've been distant lately." "Observing helps me think." "About what?" "Boundaries," I replied. "You wanted space. I'm building it." He blinked, confused. "That's not what I meant." "I know exactly what you meant, Michael." His voice lowered. "Mom, you're not still angry." "I don't do anger. I do results." He took a step back, uneasy. "You're different." "I finally am." He hesitated, then turned toward the stairs. "Elaine's waiting for me. She wants to talk about Christmas plans." "Enjoy them while you can." He stopped mid-step. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll find out soon enough." He stared for a moment, then left without another word. When the house went quiet again, I opened my notebook and wrote one line. Stage 1 complete. Then I closed it, calm as ever. The next morning, snow covered the porch again. I wiped the steps clean before Jonathan Pierce's black sedan stopped at the gate. He got out fast. Neat suit, clear eyes, briefcase in hand. "Mrs. Bennett," he greeted. "I have everything ready." "Come in," I said, stepping aside. He looked around the living room, the quiet tree, the silver garland, the perfect order. Beautiful place. "It used to be a home," I replied. "Now it's just property." Jonathan nodded once. "Then let's treat it as such." We sat at the table. He opened a thick folder. "I found a buyer, full cash offer. They want a private closing by Friday." "That's in 2 days." "Yes, ma'am. They're prepared. A couple relocating from Chicago. No questions, no delays." "Perfect." He passed me the offer sheet. I read each line, steady. "Transfer through your escrow office?" "Exactly. We'll handle the sale through a temporary holding account to protect your identity. No public listing, no digital footprint." "That's what I want." He hesitated. "Your son and daughter-in-law live here?" "They reside here," I corrected. "They don't own a single square inch." His mouth tightened. "Understood." He slid the purchase agreement across the table. "Sign here to authorize showing access." I picked up my pen. "No signs outside, no open house." "Of course, only vetted buyers." The pen moved smoothly over paper. Each stroke felt like reclaiming oxygen. Jonathan glanced up. "You're not nervous." "I don't waste energy on second thoughts." He smiled faintly. "If all sellers were like you, my job would be easier." "That's because I'm not selling a memory. I'm closing a chapter." He nodded. "I'll confirm everything with the buyers by noon." "Good. Use my secondary email for all correspondence." "Already noted." I leaned back. Once the transfer clears, I want the proceeds sent to the new trust Martin prepared. Done. You're remarkably organized. I've had a lifetime to learn paperwork warfare. He laughed quietly. Then we'll get along fine. The front door opened. Michael's voice echoed. Mom, you here? Jonathan froze. I didn't. In here? I called. Michael walked in, eyes darting between us. Who's this? Jonathan Pierce, I replied evenly. He's helping me with a transaction. Michael frowned. What kind of transaction? Maintenance, I answered. Nothing you need to worry about. He looked at Jonathan, then back at me. You're selling something? Jonathan glanced at me. I nodded once for him to stay silent. Michael's tone sharpened. Mom, what's going on? Grown-up business, I said. Finish your coffee before you start interrogating me. His jaw tightened. Elaine should be here for this. She shouldn't, I countered. This concerns me, not her. Jonathan checked his watch. Mrs. Bennett, I'll finalize the documents and send the confirmation at noon. Thank you, Jonathan. He packed his folder quickly and left through the side door, quiet as a shadow. Michael turned to me. Tell me you're not doing something stupid. I'm doing something permanent. He blinked. What does that mean? It means this house won't be a cage anymore. He stared at me like he didn't understand the language. Mom, you're overreacting. I leaned back, voice steady. You told me to leave. I'm making sure I can. His mouth opened, then closed again. I didn't mean... I know exactly what you meant. He stepped closer. We can fix this. No, Michael. You can decorate the tree, eat dinner, pretend we're fine. I'm past pretending. He hesitated. Lost. Does Elaine know? Not yet, but she'll notice soon enough. He exhaled, frustrated. You're making a mistake. I've made plenty, I said. This won't be one of them. He rubbed his face, defeated. You can't just sell the house out of nowhere. I can, and I have. It's under my name. Every payment came from my account. You never even asked where the mortgage papers went. His eyes darkened. You kept everything? I built everything. He shook his head. This isn't you. You're right, I said. It's the version of me that finally stopped being convenient. He stood still for a moment, then left without another word. The door slammed. The sound didn't bother me. I gathered the signed forms and slid them into the folder. On the top page, the words read, Seller, Nora Bennett, sole owner. The air felt lighter already. I called Jonathan back. He's gone. Good, he replied. The buyers accepted your terms. We'll close Friday at 2 p.m. Perfect. One more thing, he added. Do you want me to notify your lawyer for immediate trust transfer? Yes. Martin handles all releases. Understood. You'll get an email tonight. Thank you, Jonathan. You handle this better than anyone I've met, he admitted. Experience teaches efficiency, I replied, and hung up. Snow started again, light but steady. I stood by the window, watching flakes hit the glass. Inside the house, everything looked calm, too calm. The chairs aligned, the photos straight, the smell of gingerbread fading. But beneath the quiet, something had shifted. For the first time in years, the house felt like mine again. By Friday, the snow turned to sleet. The house gleamed, quiet and staged, like it belonged to someone else already. The smell of lemon polish covered everything that once smelled like home. At 10 a.m., Jonathan's car stopped by the curb. He stepped out with two strangers, a young couple holding hands, both dressed neatly, polite smiles hiding nerves. Mrs. Bennett, Jonathan greeted. These are Mr. and Mrs. Carter. They're the buyers we discussed. I nodded once. Welcome. The woman smiled softly. Your home is beautiful. It was, I replied. Now it's ready for someone new. Jonathan opened his folder. They've seen the disclosures. All clean. No pending taxes, no liens. Perfect, I said. Let's go through it. The husband looked around. You've kept it immaculate. I don't believe in chaos, I replied. He laughed politely. We can tell. We walked through the living room. The tree still stood in the corner, lights dimmed, ornaments reflecting the gray sky. The woman traced her fingers along the banister. This place feels calm. That's the furniture, I said, not the history. Jonathan caught my eye. Shall we proceed to the office? We sat at the table again, my table for now. Papers spread between us, pens aligned, the quiet hum of finality filling the room. Jonathan began. Full payment confirmed by wire transfer. Deed transfer ready for signature. I took the pen. Let's finish this. The buyers exchanged a look. So soon. Quick deals keep people honest. Jonathan nodded approvingly. You're the most efficient client I've had in months. Efficiency, I said, signing the first page, is underrated. He smiled faintly. We'll handle closing with the title office at 2 p.m. Once recorded, funds go straight to your trust. Good. The buyers signed next, hands trembling slightly. The man looked up. You're sure about this? I was sure the moment my son told me he was tired of seeing me. Jonathan's pen froze mid-line. The buyers glanced at each other awkwardly. I didn't flinch. People change. So do addresses. The man cleared his throat. Well, thank you for selling to us. Take care of the house, I said. It's seen too much obedience. They both smiled politely, not understanding, then handed the papers back to Jonathan. He reviewed them quickly. All good. We'll finalize at 2. The door opened suddenly. Elaine's voice rang out. Nora? Jonathan stiffened. I didn't turn. Kitchen, I called. Her heels clicked fast against the floor. What's going on here? Jonathan straightened. We're finalizing a sale, ma'am. Her eyes widened. A sale? You're selling the house? That's correct, I said, calm as ever. You can't just... This house belongs to our family. It belongs to whoever's name is on the deed, I replied. Her tone sharpened. Michael doesn't know, does he? He'll know at 4 p.m., I said, meeting her eyes. She stepped closer. You're out of your mind. No, I said quietly. I'm out of patience. Jonathan cleared his throat. Mrs. Bennett, shall I escort the buyers out? Yes, we're done here. Elaine turned toward the couple. You can't buy this. There's been a mistake. Jonathan interrupted smoothly. The documents are legal and verified. You're not on the title. Her face flushed red. You have no right. I have every right, I cut in, and every signature to prove it. The buyers excused themselves quickly, murmuring goodbyes as Jonathan followed them to the door. When the house went silent again, Elaine's voice dropped low, sharp as glass. You're destroying your son's life. No, I said. I'm ending his vacation. You can't evict your own child. I can when he stops being one. Her lip trembled, not from sadness, from rage. Michael trusted you. He trusted my wallet. She stared at me, disbelief turning into contempt. He'll never forgive you. I'm not applying for forgiveness. She laughed bitterly. You'll regret this. I don't regret logic. Jonathan returned, closing the door behind him. Everything's finalized. The title office confirmed 2 o'clock for closing. Elaine spun toward him. You can't let this happen. He stayed calm. It already has, Mrs. Bennett. Her voice cracked. Michael will fight this. Jonathan smiled politely. Then he'll lose politely. Elaine's eyes filled with fury. You're cruel. I leaned forward. Cruelty would have been leaving without warning. I'm giving notice. She stared at me, speechless. Jonathan gathered his papers. We'll head to the title office in an hour. Thank you, I replied. As soon as he left, Elaine muttered under her breath, You'll regret this, Nora. I looked her dead in the eye. No, Elaine. You will? She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the wreath fell to the floor. I picked it up, set it aside, and exhaled. The house was still again, Calm, stripped, waiting. I checked my watch. 1 hour until freedom. I poured myself another cup of coffee, black, no sugar, and whispered to the quiet room. They wanted space. I gave them emptiness. By Monday, the house was quiet again. The sale papers were locked in a folder on my desk. I was finishing coffee when my phone buzzed. "Martin Cole," the screen showed. "Morning," I answered. His tone was clipped. "Nora, we have a problem." "I don't do problems, just facts." "You're going to like this one," he replied. "Your son and daughter-in-law tried to take out a $200,000 loan using your name." My grip on the mug tightened. "They forged my signature." "Exactly. The bank flagged it. I stopped it before it processed." "Send me the file." "I already did," he said. "They even attached a fake authorization letter, copied your handwriting from the previous title deed." I looked toward the staircase. The lights upstairs were off. "You're sure?" "As sure as a notary with a conscience," he answered. "Block every attempt from now on. Freeze any pending access to the estate account." "Already done." "Good." A long pause. "Do you want me to press charges?" "Not yet," I replied. "I'd rather let them sweat under silence." "Understood." I ended the call and stared at the silver pen on my table, the one they'd tried to imitate. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. Michael appeared, half awake, pretending calm. "Morning." "Morning," I replied. He rubbed his neck. "You look serious." "Serious suits me." He frowned. "Is something wrong?" "Depends on your definition." He hesitated, eyes flicking toward the papers. "Elaine's been worried. She said you were talking to lawyers again." "Always a good habit." "What's going on?" "Forgery," I replied. "An old-fashioned one, signed with my name." His face paled. "What?" "I assume you can guess who tried it." He froze. "You think I—" "Think? No. I know." His voice cracked. "That's ridiculous." The bank didn't think so. Neither did Martin. He took a step closer. "Mom, you don't understand. Stop using 'we' to hide behind her," I cut in. "You signed it. Twice." He shook his head fast. "Elaine said it was temporary, just until you learned how to commit a felony?" He opened his mouth, then shut it again. I leaned back. "I built this house from a salary check. I paid every bill on time, and you used my name like a spare key." "I was desperate," he whispered. "You were entitled." He swallowed hard. "You're overreacting." "Forgery is a crime, not a misunderstanding." Elaine's voice came from behind him. "You don't need to threaten us, Nora." She stepped into the room, hair perfect, expression rehearsed. "You look calm for someone who almost committed bank fraud," I noted. Her smile stayed frozen. "This is a family matter, no need to exaggerate." I stood. "You forged my name." "It was just paperwork," she snapped. "Paperwork happens to be my battlefield." Michael tried to intervene. "Mom, we just needed time. The holidays—" "You had years," I interrupted. "Time was never the issue. Integrity was." Elaine crossed her arms. "We were going to pay it back." "With what? Morals?" She glared. "You're not as innocent as you pretend. You manipulate everyone." "I don't manipulate. I document." "You can't throw us out," she warned. "I don't need to. The law already will." A sharp knock interrupted us. The front door opened and Martin stepped in, folder under his arm. "Morning," he said briskly. Elaine froze. "You again?" "Always a pleasure," he replied dryly. "Mrs. Bennett, the forgery file as requested." He placed the folder on the table, opening it so both of them could see. "This is the original application, and this," he flipped the page, "is your copy of her signature." Elaine's face drained. "Spot the difference," I murmured. Martin continued, voice steady. "The loan officer confirmed this was filed last Thursday. IP address traces back to this house." Michael took a step back. "That's not proof." "It's enough for a warrant," Martin replied. Elaine's voice cracked. "You can't prove intent." Martin looked at her. "Intent is assumed when someone signs another person's name under penalty of perjury." Her mask slipped. You wouldn't dare press charges. I folded my arms. Try me. Martin closed the folder. I've already filed an incident report. We can pursue civil action if Mrs. Bennett chooses. Not yet, I said. Fear is sometimes a better teacher than punishment. Elaine's jaw clenched. You're heartless. No, I replied. I'm thorough. Michael looked at the floor. Mom, I didn't mean for this. Intent doesn't erase ink. He swallowed. I'll fix it. You can start by finding somewhere else to stay. Elaine gasped. You're kicking us out? I'm respecting the closing date. Martin gathered the documents. Mrs. Bennett, once the sale finalizes this afternoon, they'll no longer have legal access. Elaine turned toward him. This isn't over. It is on paper, he replied calmly. She glared at me. You'll regret humiliating your own family. I met her stare without blinking. I regret raising someone who thought family meant ownership. Martin's tone softened slightly. Everything's in order, Nora. Just sign the affidavit here, confirming the attempted fraud. I signed it without hesitation. Done. He nodded. This locks their access permanently. Elaine stepped forward. You think you've won? I don't compete, I replied. I conclude. She turned to Michael. Say something. But he stayed silent, shoulders sagging. Martin checked his watch. I'll see you at 2 for the final transfer. Thank you, Martin. He left quietly, his professionalism cutting through the chaos like clean air. Elaine stared at me one last time. You'll be alone, Nora. That's your punishment. Peace is never punishment, I answered. She stormed out, dragging Michael behind her. The door slammed. The silence that followed felt like victory. Steady, not loud. I looked down at the folder still open on the table. The forged signature stared back at me, shaky and unconvincing. I reached for my pen, the real one, and wrote a single line underneath it. They forged my name, but I still hold the pen. Then I closed the folder, locked it away, and watched the snow start again outside the window. By the next morning, I had almost finished packing when the doorbell rang. It wasn't the soft tone of a neighbor or delivery. It was firm, rhythmic, official. Through the glass panel, I saw 2 uniformed officers, one male, one female. Their posture said everything. I opened the door. Good morning, officers. The male officer stepped forward, polite but direct. Mrs. Nora Bennett? Yes. He lifted a folder. We have a warrant to conduct a property check. There's a complaint filed by Mr. Michael Bennett and Mrs. Elaine Bennett. I didn't even blink. A complaint for what? They claim you sold this property without their consent, using assets belonging to the family. Interesting, I replied. Come in. The female officer hesitated. Are you aware of the sale currently under review? Completely aware, I said calmly, stepping aside. The closing was finalized yesterday at 3:14 p.m. The deed's already recorded. The male officer exchanged a glance with his partner. Then you won't mind if we take a look. Please, just don't trip over the truth. It's sharp. They entered, scanning the living room. The space was nearly bare, just a few boxes, and the scent of coffee. Elaine's voice came from the hallway like venom wrapped in silk. You see, she's hiding everything. She appeared behind them with Michael trailing, looking worn and hollow. The officer turned. Ma'am, please remain calm. Elaine gestured toward me. She stole our home. I crossed my arms. Correction. I sold my home. Michael's voice cracked. You didn't even warn us. I did, I replied. Repeatedly. You mistook warnings for weakness. The officer cleared his throat. Let's keep this civil. Mrs. Bennett, can you provide proof of ownership? I pointed toward the folder on the dining table. In there. Certified copy of the title, notarized and signed by the buyer's attorney. The female officer opened it, flipping through the pages. Everything seems in order. Elaine scoffed. She forged everything. I tilted my head. Would you like to explain why your own forgery was reported to the police 2 days ago? The male officer turned toward her. Is that true, ma'am? Elaine stammered. That was unfounded, I finished for her. But conveniently timed, wasn't it? The officer checked his notes. We also received a duplicate signature complaint from the bank this week. It's listed under your name, Mrs. Elaine Bennett. Elaine froze. That's absurd. Michael's face drained. Elaine. She spun toward him. Don't start. The officers exchanged a look. The female officer closed the folder gently. Mrs. Bennett, she said to me, your documentation is complete. We have no reason to continue this inspection. I figured, I replied. The male officer added, we'll file this as a false report. If you wish, you can press charges for harassment. I prefer peace over paperwork, I said. Elaine's voice rose. You can't just walk away from this. The officer faced her. Ma'am, you made a false allegation against a verified property owner. That's a criminal offense. Her lips trembled. She's manipulating everyone. Ma'am, the female officer said quietly, you need to stop. The silence stretched. Then the sharp click of shoes echoed. Martin entered from the side door, briefcase in hand. Officers, he greeted smoothly. Perfect timing. I brought certified copies of the sale confirmation, tax clearance, and the fraud report we filed against these two individuals. Elaine's eyes widened. You're lying. Martin's tone didn't waver. The county recorder doesn't lie. The title now belongs to the new owner. You have no standing here. Michael tried to speak, his voice shaking. Mom, please, don't call me that, I interrupted, calm as glass. You've already used that word for leverage once too often. Elaine turned toward the officers, desperation creeping into her tone. She's turning everyone against us. The male officer exhaled. Ma'am, enough. We're done here. They began writing in their report. Martin handed them a sealed envelope. Official notice that all legal rights have been transferred. Please include this in your file. The female officer nodded. We will. Elaine snapped, This isn't fair. I met her eyes. Fairness doesn't exist in theft, Elaine. Michael whispered, You're punishing us. And I looked straight at him. I'm educating you. The female officer closed her notebook. We'll leave now. Mrs. Bennett, thank you for your cooperation. Any time, I replied. They walked toward the door. Elaine stood motionless, jaw clenched, eyes wild. Martin adjusted his tie. Well, that's settled. I nodded. Almost. He paused. Almost? I'd like to proceed with the fraud case after all. Martin gave a slow smile. Understood. I'll file it today. Elaine spun around. You can't do that. I can, I replied. And I will. Michael stepped forward, voice breaking. Mom, please stop. We made mistakes. Don't ruin our lives. I held his gaze. You ruined your own. He looked away, ashamed. Elaine muttered something under her breath, something venomous, but I didn't care enough to catch it. Martin packed his documents. The law is clear, Nora. They'll lose any appeal attempt within days. That's not what I'm after, I said quietly. He frowned. Then what are you after? Closure. Elaine let out a short, bitter laugh. You'll end up alone. I met her eyes one last time. Alone and free beats surrounded and trapped. For the first time, she had no comeback. Martin gestured toward the officers now exiting. They'll file the report by noon. After that, you're untouchable. Good, I replied, turning toward the window. Outside, snow was falling again, soft, silent, and merciless. Elaine's voice trembled. Where will we go? That, I said evenly, was a question you should have asked before betraying me. She looked around the empty room, at the bare walls, the echo of what used to be comfort. You'll regret this, she whispered. I don't regret ending mistakes. Martin handed me a folder. Everything's secure now. The buyer will take possession tomorrow morning. I nodded once. Then this chapter is finished. As the door closed behind them, the silence returned, clean, heavy, and final. I poured another cup of coffee, steady as ever. Outside, the snow covered every footprint leading away from my door. It was past midnight when I heard it, the faint clink of metal at the back door. Not the sound of wind, not an animal, intentional. I stayed still, listening. Another click, then a low whisper. "Michael, hurry up," a voice hissed. "Elaine." I exhaled slowly, turned off the lamp, and stepped into the hallway. The security monitor glowed faintly. 2 figures in the snow, one fumbling with the lock. I pressed record. Another whisper. "The papers must be here somewhere. She hides everything." The door gave a soft creak. They slipped inside, careful as thieves. Because they were. I waited until they crossed the living room. Then the light snapped on. "Looking for something?" Elaine froze mid-step. Michael spun around, face pale. Mom, we thought you were asleep." "I don't sleep through felonies," I replied evenly. Elaine tried to smile. "We just came to get what's ours." "Yours?" I folded my arms. "Remind me, which part of my sold property belongs to you?" Michael stammered. "You left files behind. Important papers." "Those files are locked, like the truth you've been avoiding." Elaine's tone sharpened. "We know you still keep a copy of the sale contract here. If we get it, we can prove you cheated us." "Cheated?" I took a step closer. "You forged my name, filed false police reports, and broke into a private residence you no longer own. If that's not irony, I don't know what is." Elaine's eyes darted toward the desk. "Michael, grab the folder." He didn't move. "Elaine." "Do it," she hissed. I pressed a button on my phone. A quiet beep sounded from the corner camera. "Smile. You're on live feed." Elaine froze. "You wouldn't—" "I already did. The footage is uploading to Martin's cloud as we speak." Michael's shoulders dropped. "We just needed a chance to explain." "Breaking in isn't an explanation," I said. "It's evidence." Elaine's voice rose. "You set us up." "No, you volunteered." The tension thickened. Only the ticking wall clock dared to speak. Then Michael whispered, "We're desperate, Mom. The police froze our accounts. Elaine can't pay the rent." I looked at him, calm but not cruel. "Consequences aren't cruelty, they're math." Elaine's eyes flashed. "You've always looked down on us." "No," I said. "I just finally looked clearly." She clenched her fists. "You think this is over? I'll destroy every deal you've made." "You already tried that with forged documents. Didn't work." Elaine glanced toward the window, as if calculating escape. The motion light outside caught her reflection. Drawn, panicked, small. I walked past her to the kitchen drawer, took out a small envelope, and placed it on the counter. "Here's your share." Her eyes widened. "What?" "Inside is this proof you left behind, the fake power of attorney, the false loan papers, and the email you sent to the bank. I suggest you take it before the detective does." Michael looked stunned. "You kept those?" "I keep everything," I answered. "Evidence is the one thing people can't argue with." Elaine snatched the envelope, her voice shaking. "You're bluffing." "Open it." She did, her face drained of color. "You wouldn't hand this to the police." "I already did. That's a copy." Michael whispered, "Mom, please." "Michael," I said quietly, "when you forged my signature, you chose your side. Tonight, you crossed the line completely." He ran a hand through his hair. "We just wanted to fix it. You fix things by owning them, not by breaking in." A sudden knock rattled the front door. 3 firm hits. Elaine jumped. "Who's that?" "Martin," I replied. "He has impeccable timing." When I opened the door, Martin stood there in a dark coat, holding his phone. Behind him, a patrol car idled quietly by the curb. "Good evening," he said. "Detective Grant's waiting outside." Elaine backed up. "You called the police?" "I didn't need to," I answered. "The security system did." Martin stepped inside, eyes calm. "I suggest you both stop talking. Anything else will be used in court." Michael swallowed hard. "Court?" "Yes," Martin said flatly. "This constitutes unlawful entry and attempted tampering with legal evidence." Elaine glared at him. "You think she's a saint? She's manipulating everyone." Martin met her glare. "No, Mrs. Bennett. She's protecting herself. The law favors the prepared." The female officer from before entered behind him, pen ready. "We'll take it from here." Elaine's voice cracked. "This is harassment." "No, ma'am," the officer replied. "This is accountability." Michael covered his face. "I didn't mean—" "You never do," I interrupted. "That's why you keep losing." The officer gestured toward the door. "You'll both need to come with us for questioning." Elaine turned to me, her voice trembling. "You're destroying us." "No," I said quietly. "You did that the night you decided my signature was yours." She tried to speak, but nothing came out. Martin waited until they were escorted outside, then closed the door gently. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm consistent," I replied. He smiled faintly. "Detective Grant will handle the rest. You won't need to testify unless you want to." "I will," I said. "Some lessons deserve witnesses." We stood there in silence for a moment. Through the window, the patrol car's lights pulsed red and blue across the snow. Martin glanced at the monitor. "Perfect footage. You're meticulous." "That's how I survived," I answered. He nodded. "Then you'll sleep well tonight." "I'll try." After he left, the house was still again. I walked to the back door and locked it, slowly, deliberately. The metallic click echoed through the empty rooms like a full stop. On the counter, a half-finished cup of coffee had gone cold. I poured it down the drain, wiped the counter clean, and whispered to myself, "They broke in for proof. All they found was truth." By noon the next day, the sky was pale gray, the kind that makes time feel frozen. My phone vibrated with a message from Martin. "Court filing accepted. Meeting at 2 p.m. At exactly 2, I walked into his office. The smell of paper and polished wood greeted me. Martin looked up from a stack of folders. "You're punctual, as always." "I don't waste time on people who already wasted mine." He gestured toward the seat across from him. "Everything's moving fast. Detective Grant's report on last night's break-in went through. Both of them are facing charges for unlawful entry and attempted evidence tampering." "Good," I replied. "But I want a civil motion, too." He slid a new file across the table. "Already prepared, claiming damages, emotional distress, and fraud. It's airtight. You'll have full control of the settlement." I flipped through the pages. "No mercy clauses." "None," he confirmed. "If they try to appeal, the forged documents will bury them." "Perfect." Martin leaned back, studying me. "You're remarkably calm for someone whose son is about to face court. Calm is what happens when you stop confusing love with permission." He smiled faintly. "That's one to remember." Before he could continue, the door opened. Detective Grant stepped in, hat under his arm. "Afternoon, Mrs. Bennett. Thought you should hear it from me. Your daughter-in-law spent the night in holding. Your son posted bail." "I expected that," I answered. "He's always quick to pay for mistakes with borrowed money." Grant nodded. "She's been trying to claim you forced her into signing those loan documents. We found the original emails. She sent them from her own address." "Thank you for confirming," I said. "Truth always leaves fingerprints." Martin turned toward him. "Detective, do we have a hearing date?" "Wednesday morning. The judge wanted it expedited." "Excellent," Martin replied. "That'll finalize everything before the sale transfer completes." Grant gave a small grin. "You're both frighteningly efficient." "I'm old," I said, "not slow." After the detective left, Martin passed me another envelope. "One last thing. The buyer requested a public confirmation of ownership to prevent future disputes. I drafted a short statement." I read it aloud, my voice steady. "The property formerly located at 412 Maple Drive has been legally sold and transferred. Any further claims are fraudulent and will be pursued to the full extent of the law." "Perfect," I said, signing at the bottom. "Send it to the paper." He chuckled. "You really want it public." "Let everyone see what happens when greed meets documentation." Martin nodded, admiration in his eyes. "You remind me of my first client. Quiet, but lethal. I just prefer clean endings. Lean." My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I put it on speaker. "Mrs. Bennett," a strained voice said. "This is Michael." I didn't reply. He continued. "Elaine's losing it. She says you ruined our lives." "I didn't ruin anything," I answered. "I corrected it." "Please," he said, voice breaking. "If you drop the case, we'll leave town. We'll sign anything." "You already signed too much," I replied. "Goodbye, Michael." He started to protest, but I ended the call. Martin exhaled slowly. That was harsh. "No," I said. That was final. We drove to the courthouse in silence. Snow had begun to fall again, thin, precise flakes like cut glass. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and bureaucracy. Elaine was already there, sitting with her lawyer. She looked smaller than usual, her confidence stripped away. Michael sat beside her, hands clasped tight. When the judge entered, everyone stood. The hearing moved quickly, too quickly for them to find footing. Martin spoke clearly, showing the chain of evidence, the forged documents, the bank statement, the break-in footage. Each exhibit hit like a hammer. Elaine's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him. "Everything presented here is verified." Elaine's voice cracked. "She's my mother-in-law. She's doing this to destroy us." The judge looked at me. "Mrs. Bennett, do you wish to respond?" I rose slowly. "No, Your Honor. I'm not here to destroy. I'm here to document." The room fell silent. The judge nodded. "Well documented, indeed." After the final ruling, Martin whispered, "We won." I whispered back, "No, we finished." Elaine collapsed into her chair, tears mixing with anger. Michael didn't move. For the first time, he looked older than me. Outside the courtroom, Martin handed me the stamped copy. "They're barred from contesting your sale or accessing your accounts." "Good," I said. "Let them finally experience quiet." He smiled slightly. "You know, most people would celebrate." "I don't celebrate justice. I maintain it." As we stepped into the cold afternoon, the courthouse bell chimed 3 times. The sound was sharp, clear, honest. Martin turned to me. "What's next?" "Closure," I replied, "and moving forward." The next morning, the sun broke through the gray sky, bright and unforgiving. The house was empty. The echoes of the past, Michael's laughter, Elaine's heels, the arguments, were gone. Only the walls remained, and they no longer belonged to me. Margaret stood by the door, holding 2 coffees. She didn't ask if I was sad. She knew better. "The truck is gone," she said softly. "Are you ready?" I stood by the kitchen counter one last time. The silver box sat there, gleaming in the light. My phone buzzed on the table. A final message from Michael. "Mom, please, just call us." I looked at it for a second. No anger, no hesitation. I blocked the number. Then I opened the silver box. Inside lay Daniel's old letter and the court ruling I had won yesterday. The past and the present. Both safe. "I kept my promise, Daniel," I whispered. "I didn't let them take what we built. I let it go on my own terms." I snapped the lid shut. A sharp, final click that sounded like freedom. "I'm ready," I told Margaret. We walked out into the crisp winter air. The sold sign on the lawn was covered in fresh snow. I handed the keys to the agent waiting by the gate, not looking back at the window where I used to wait for my son to come home. I got into my car. The engine hummed to life, warm and steady. Margaret leaned in through the window, smiling. "Where to?" "Forward," I replied. "Somewhere quiet?" I shifted gears and pulled away. The road ahead curved along the frozen lake, shimmering like diamonds under the sun. I remembered what I told Michael. You wanted space. I looked at the endless open horizon before me. "Now," I smiled, "I finally have mine." Chum. The car disappeared down the road, leaving nothing behind but footprints in the snow. And the truth. And that was Nora Bennett's story. A story about dignity, silence, and the power of choosing peace over chaos. Sometimes, walking away isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing a person can do. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to leave a comment below and tell us which moment hit you the hardest. Your words mean more than you think. Thank you for spending this time with Grandma Life Stories, where every story reminds us that wisdom doesn't fade with age. It sharpens. Take care of your peace, protect your dignity, and I'll see you in the next story. Subscribe for more stories of quiet strength and poetic justice.